The last speaker of today's event is Mr. Mohit طباطبایی, who will talk about the 75 years of history of the ایکوم. First of all, I'd like to appreciate all of you, the organizers of this event, my colleagues at ایکوم who have made lots of efforts to hold this event. As you know, when we talk about the modern, is a new concept which emerged after Renaissance. But before that, there was a huge history of this. You know, Oxford University was the initial point for the modern history of the museums. I don't like to talk about it. I like to talk about 100 past years. I mean, two huge events transpired, World War I and World War II. It destroyed lots of historical and cultural monuments, which were controlled by the governments, which was controlled by the public sector or private sector. And this kind of destruction resulted in a situation that it made it clear that there should be a kind of body which would be apart from the museums. I mean public museums. Mr. Hambi, I mean in 1920s or 2030s, he proposed the idea of establishment of the museums in the US, and he was the manager of the Philadelphia Museum for 28 years. And he was so active in the field of museology, and he proposed the idea of establishment of a kind of international body for museums. And he had a kind of interaction with George Salas, a French archaeologist. He was the manager of the museums of France. And they had a kind of understanding, a kind of collaboration to establish an international body for this purpose. And they wanted to establish this international association, which was called Eikom. It was established 75 years ago in Paris, and in 1947, in November, they held the first General Assembly of the Museums. I mean Supreme Council of the Museums, and it was given birth to the Eikom. Eikom has lots of responsibility in terms of supporting development and promotion of the museums across the world. And because of this, maybe the most important task which has been undertaken over the past 75 years in terms of development of the concept of museum has been changing the mentality and mindset in terms of museums, and taking the museums to the houses of the people, to the minds of the people, in a way that to form a kind of cultural behavior which will be foundation for development and in a kind of base for any future development. I want to say that maybe previously museums were used just to preserve historical items or artifact items and to take pride in having those kind of cultural monuments or items. They changed their functionalities. The meanings of the museum experienced some change. I mean, it has the concept and the foundation of the, to deal with the social issues, to provide answers for the social problems. I mean that museums move beyond the walls which were confining them and limiting them inside some borders. It was the measure which was undertaken by Eikom. I want to say that museums were not just some items confined within some borders. It has a kind of views which was promoted by Eikom. I want to draw your attention to the point that this kind of museum perspective is very important, and it has been highlighted across the world. In a sense that museums can be inclusive, they can attract public and specialized audiences, and at the same time they can promote to conservation, presentation, promotion, expansion, development, and whatever which are important in and which can subsume under definition of the museums, and they have been highlighted by Eikom. The last or the most recent definition of the museum has highlighted the museum to be a kind of non-private organization to support the cultural heritage, historical heritage of the human, and the historical nature of the human, and different aspects of the life. And in this new definition, we have seen that for the herbariums or libraries or national archives, all of them are focusing on this concept. But whenever we talk about the information revolution, .com revolution in the 1990s, the concept and meaning of the museum have expanded dramatically. I want to say that museums are not just looking at some old definition. We need to have a kind of new definitions which have been highlighted by the Advisory Council and Supreme Council of the ICOM to focus on new dimensions to highlight some new aspects which are related to museums. Museums are not just for the past. We want to remove those kind of forgetting. We want to focus on some new items. We want to revive the items to set the ground for the future, to have a kind of futuristic orientation, and to revive the life and focus on those kind of aspects. And because of this, ICOM over past 75 years have focused on this very important issue. As you know, currently more than 40,000 people are members of ICOM, and 140 countries have national committees of museums. And they have international committees. We have some regional alliances under the umbrella of ICOM, and we are interested in establishing new museums, new associations to deal with the socio-cultural needs of the people. In Iran, before 1979 revolution, after the revolution, ICOM was established in Iran, and it was revitalized, and some together with the public administration, ICOM Iran, as a non-private organization, has done its best to cover legal bodies and private individuals to highlight the concept of museums. I hope that and I wish that museums would take the right place in the education system of Iran, not as a kind of pastime, but as a kind of serious issue within the curriculum. I mean that in education department, they should be highlighted. They should be looked at as a kind of basic activities to be undertaken by universities and schools. And this event, on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of ICOM, we wanted to have a kind of look at the past experience of the museum. 100 years of Iranian museums. And if we want to expand and develop museums, we need legal support, financial support, spatial support in terms of this. You know, in conclusion, I'd like to talk about the epidemic of COVID-19. COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted not only the normal lives, but also has disrupted so many other aspects of our lives. But it has had some positive aspects. For example, we have gained some lessons, and those lessons learned can be a kind of foundation for better future. And I think that museum as a kind of bodies to deal with these issues and provide these answers, they can highlight these issues. What kind of lesson learned can be taken for the future generations, both for children. Nowadays we are talking about social distances, but social distances because of the COVID-19 has moved us toward a kind of more proximity for us. And if we do not preserve these kind of records in the museums, it would be so problematic for future generations. In conclusion, I want to say that I like to appreciate all of you, thank all of you. I like to appreciate my own colleagues in the Secretariat of ICOM Iran, my colleagues in the National Committee of ICOM. I like to appreciate Iranian National Museum for giving us this space. I like to appreciate the National Museum of Telecommunication and Post Museum. I like to appreciate the NGOs which are active in the field of cultural heritage tourism. they have supported us in different stages of organizing this event. And finally, I like to appreciate everybody, Iranian National UNESCO Commission who have been with us. I like to appreciate the curators and practitioners in the field of museum who have been with us or who are absent here. I like to thank all of you. I like to extend my heartfelt appreciation to all of you for being with us, to setting the stage for museum activities. I like to appreciate you, the dear participants who have been with us and who have stayed for us. Stayed with us for 2 hours, more than 3 hours actually, and other actors. I like to appreciate the media man and my colleagues, IT guys. In the final section of the program, we want to cut the cake. As you know, there's a kind of birthday cake for the Eikom at the 75th anniversary of the establishment of the Eikom. But prior to this, I'd like to invite Dr. Nokande to join us on the stage. He is the president of Iranian National Museum. I'd like to seize the opportunity to appreciate him. As you know, Iranian National Museum has helped us a lot in terms of organizing this kind of events. And we have shared experiences in terms of museums. And we formed some models during this kind of events. Dr. Nokande, the president of the Iranian National Museum, we want to appreciate him and we want to grant him a tablet of gratitude to appreciate and mark his works and support. May God bless you. Thank you so much for all of your efforts, Dr. Nokande. And the top museum award goes to your museum because of the creativity, research, visiting, in presentation. Your museum was chosen as the top museum by the board of referees. We wish you success and happiness for the colleagues to you. Thank you so much. This award goes to the National Museum of Iran. We were supposed to hand over this award last year, but because of the pandemic it was postponed. And we want to appreciate all of the colleagues at the National Museum of Iran. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now we go to the cake cutting ceremony. Thank you so much. May God bless you all.